Bearded iris are the tall flowering plants that bloom in the mid-spring, in May and in early June with those big flowers, and very often we have to divide them because their roots become congested. Actually, they're rhizomes. Bearded iris only bloom on new growth. And you can see this is the rhizome from last year's growth, and these rhizomes, where the foliage is coming out, will be the blossoms for next year's growth. And one of the first things we want to do is remove some of the top growth. And I tend to cut this into a fan shape. It doesn't really completely look like the iris, but it makes it a lot easier to work with them. And I like to dedicate a serrated knife. When I say dedicate, do not use this in the kitchen, you know, and use that to cut, or a single-edged razor blade, dangerous but useful. Or our handy Felcos. I happen to like the number 2s, but whichever pair of Felcos you have, and of course you have a pair of Felcos, of course. So I'm just going to cut off this little one first. And one that's this small, that's not going to bloom next year. It may not even bloom for 2 years. But we're still going to do that because this old part isn't going to do any good for the iris at all. Now, you might think, why do it? Well, as I said, they get congested, they stop blooming, especially the modern hybrids stop blooming unless the old growth is removed. And another reason that I like to do it is there's an awful grub that attacks the iris, and it lives in the rhizome, and it eats it from the inside out, and it kills the plant. And this gives me an opportunity to guard against that. And I'm not sure why it works, but it does. It sends those grubs packing. I do a 10-second dip with my fleshy new growth in 10% bleach and water. And just for 10 seconds. That's why I'm wearing gloves between the knives, some paper towels, so you can see them even better. So here's our wonderful, delicious, fleshy, healthy rhizome. The roots look healthy. Replant that. You can even plant it where your iris were before, or share them with friends, because when you dig it up you're going to have many, many more plants than you started with. And this is our new growth. This is what's going to bloom next season. And that's all there is to dividing iris. It's simple.